Hi, everyone. My name is Lila, and this is my daughter, Rosemary. I'm going to lead the activity, and she's going to work along with us. But there's a couple things that we want to talk about before we get started. I want to go over the list of supplies to make sure everyone has their supplies. You need coffee filters or paper towel squares, markers, water and either droppers or squeeze bottle or spray bottle. If you don't have any of those, you just have a spoon, that's okay too. And I have a baking tray to work in. And then something that I didn't mention on the list of supplies that I think might also be helpful, if you have kind of a shallow dish, that could help, or and also maybe a spot for some things to dry on if you do more than one. So I have, I decided to sit out a baking cooling rack down on my table, just so that I have a little bit of space for things to dry on. But you don't need those things, it just might make it a little bit less messy. So you can, if you don't have any of those supplies, you can gather them now, and I'm gonna let Elizabeth, my friend, tell us a little bit more about how to use Zoom.
Like this. All right, hi everyone. If this is your first time with us, I want to go through a few tips and tricks for Zoom to make it more successful. So when you come in to the room you were muted, you can unmute yourself by going down to the lower left-hand corner of your screen. You'll see a little microphone that lets you mute and unmute yourself. So while you're working, if you don't want to have a bunch of background noise, you can go ahead and keep yourself muted. If you want to say something, like if we've asked a question or you want to show us what you're doing, you can unmute yourself, or I, as the host, I can come and unmute you as well. So if I see you talking and trying to share something with us, I will try my best to unmute you as we go. The other thing you can do right next to that microphone is a little video camera icon. So you can choose if you want to show us your video so we can see you and see what you're working on, or you can turn that video off. Either way. We will be recording today's session, but we are only recording Lila and her screen, so you don't have to worry about being on camera. And if you want to make sure that Lila and her camera and her screen is the one that you're seeing the most, if you go to her little square and you find the three little dots, Lila, can you say something for us so we all know where you are?
Sure. I'm right here, and then the little dots you'll find up in this corner right up here where I'm pointing.
Yeah, so if you find those dots in the upper right-hand corner, then you can click pin video, and that will make Lila's video the biggest one that's taking up your screen, so you can make sure you're following along and seeing what she's doing. All right, and with that, we will go ahead and get started.
Actually, I have one other quick thing about Zoom. Something that could help us to call on you is in that same upper right corner. Oh no, is that where it is? No, I'm sorry. Down on the bottom, there's a bar that says participants. It's about right kind of in the middle. If you click on that, you can see an option. It'll say more options, and when you find yourself, and you can change your name there. And change your name to the name of the kid who's participating, then we can, if your child has a question, we can actually call on them by name. So it just makes it a little bit easier to have a conversation together. You don't have to do that, but if you want to, that can be helpful. All right, now on to our activity. So the first thing we're going to do is take one of our coffee filters or paper towel squares, and we're going to draw on it with markers. Now, when we draw on it, we don't, I would suggest first starting with just one or two colors, and don't draw it a whole lot, just make like a few simple circles maybe. There you go. So I'll do that and show you what I did, and then you guys can hold up and see what you did. Just some circles. So I made just 2 simple circles like that. You don't have to make the same kind of thing, but if the colors are further away from each other, then you can see what happens next a little easier. So, oh great, I see some of you holding them up. If you want to hold up your filters when you got something drawn on it, then I can see. Oh great, it looks like lots of you have things drawn on them. That's great. So we'll move on to the next step. And if you're not done drawing, you can keep going. So the next thing we're going to do, if you did find a shallow cup or bowl, you can set your paper on top of it. If not, you can just set it right down into your baking tray. And then we are going to slowly drop some water on it. So here, I put that for you. So if you have a water dropper or a squeeze bottle, you can start doing that. And just put a couple drops on and start to watch what happens to the colors. Does anyone want to tell me what they see happening? You can raise your hand if you want to talk. Britton?
It shows that it doesn't show what you're doing because your thing is way down there. And yeah, it's not
yes.
seen.
So it's hard to see what I'm doing without dripping the water everywhere. Let's see. I'm dripping the water here. Let's see if I can show you. I'm dripping the water like this right on top of my coffee filter where the markers are. Does that make sense? Can you see what I'm doing? Okay, great. And Britton, did you have something you wanted to say too? Can you unmute her, Elizabeth?
Yep. Maybe. There's a lot of people in here.
Yep.
All right, we have a couple people raising their hands. So I've unmuted Dylan and Joe.
Okay. It takes colors and it turns up and new. See? And it just put it on the and you
Oh, wow. So one thing that Rosemary.
I have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
So when I put my markers on it and put the water, it got all fuzzy.
It got all fuzzy. Yeah, exactly. So that's what the
Fuzzy.
yeah. So the water is actually pulling the color molecules and spreading them apart. That's why it gets fuzzy. And different color molecules move at different speeds. So if you have different color markers, you might notice that one starts to spread out faster or slower than another. Did anybody notice that happening in their drawing?
Did it stay down?
That's Ariel and I noticed
Yes.
that our colors were disappearing.
That much water.
Ah, starting to disappear. Yeah, they start to kind of fade and
Pull
spread.
apart, yeah, like you said.
Yeah.
And
Is it still the same color?
my colors are just up and new like a portal.
Ah, cool. Does anybody have a black marker with them? If you try it with a black marker, if you have one, try a new one with a black marker and see what happens. And we use the black marker.
I need a black marker.
We know you. Silly boy, you need to do it when it's dry.
I want to do it now.
Okay.
Dylan, I see that one. That was with the black marker? Oh, cool. What do people notice when they put the water on the black marker one?
It spreads out.
Yeah, it spreads out. And do you
There's
notice?
some blue in it.
Yeah, some blue in it, exactly. Are there any other colors anyone sees in the black one?
There's purple and blue.
There's purple and blue? Yeah, so that's really interesting, isn't it? So the black one has many different colors in it, and that's because black pigment is actually a mixture of lots of different colors. And when I said those colors separate at different speeds, so the different colors start to separate out of the black at different times. Oh, cool. That looks awesome, Joe. Oh, nice, Ilana. Oh, and Jasper, I like yours.
She'll tell us.
It's Eliana.
Eliana, I'm sorry.
Fine.
You can do the experiment.
Jasper. Oh, I like that.
Rob, pick it up.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a little.
I love what everyone is doing. So has anybody decided that they like one color more than another?
What color do you like?
Saya and Emma, yours were great.
I like the pink and purple one.
The pink and purple one?
Mhm.
Nice. So do you know that what we're making today is called a paper chromograph? And that this is actually chemistry. So have any of you noticed the leaves change color in the fall? Have you guys seen that? Raise your hand if you've seen that happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would help.
Oh, right. So most of you have seen that happen. So that's actually chemistry happening right there in nature, happening all around us. So it's the same kind of thing as what's happening here. Those colors are getting separated and reacting to something in nature. Ours is reacting to water, but in nature it's reacting to all the things going on around it. And also scientists use paper chromographs in solving crime. Well, not paper chromatography, but they use chromatography to also solve crimes sometimes. And in a lot of different aspects, separating colors like this can be used. So you guys, we're doing chemistry right now. Did you know that?
In the breakout room?
Yeah.
Pretty cool, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool to do chemistry and art all at the same time, right?
Hey, Keith.
What else is anybody noticing when they make these?
What
Yeah.
chemistry is this?
Out and learn about connection.
Britton, go ahead.
You absolutely are, but you were a few minutes early, so we were still working on our slides.
Put the water on the picture. I saw yellow coming out of the black marker.
You saw yellow coming out of the black marker? Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, ours, it seemed to pull green and purple out separately. Look, can you see how it's sort of almost like a rainbow of colors? That one was just black.
Does anyone have two different kinds of black markers that you can try? Do you think
Oh, yeah.
all black markers are the same?
Try this one. Which one did you use before?
That one.
Ariel was wondering what a kid-friendly definition of chemistry is.
Kid-friendly definition, let's see. So chemistry is basically looking at the way things interact in different situations or with different elements. So the way our markers interact with water that's one thing to look at with chemistry. Another kind of chemistry that we do all the time in our houses is baking. When we mix those different elements together, and then put them in the oven and add heat, they do something else and turn into a different thing. Does that make
So
sense?
like like ingredients in a recipe, they all go together to make something.
It looks like Adeline and Chloe and Piper, you might have a question.
Yes, I was wondering, what does the coffee filter have to do with the markers in the water reacting?
Do that.
So the coffee filter is a nice porous material that just lets those colors travel really well and it sucks up the water easily. So it's really just a vehicle to help let it spread apart. Does anybody else have a question? Yes, Sarah? Oh, you're muted, Sarah. Let's see. Maybe Elizabeth can, or you can unmute yourself.
Working on it.
Oh, I think you wanted a different Sarah.
Oh, there you go. Now we got it.
I muted all of the Sarahs.
Okay, I muted my audio, so I do have a question. Why do some colors have different reactions?
Because there's different dyes in there, and the molecules of the different colors move in different speeds, and also different markers kind of have different chemical makeups. So if you use like a Crayola marker versus a wet erase marker or something like that, they have different pigments in them, so they're going to react differently to the water on the paper. Okay, what's your question, Sarah?
What happens if you wet the paper towel or the other thing first and then put the marker on?
No.
I think if you do that first, well, you can try it first of all, but they're so thin that they might rip. But try it and let me know what happens. Does anyone else want to try that experiment too? Wet it first and then put some marker on and see what happens?
Let's do it. This one on the table.
God, I have an eye drop. Tomorrow's project, I'll go to the store and get that picture.
When I tried it, it didn't really spread. How about you, Sarah? What happened when you tried it?
Ready?
It didn't really, it kind of spread it for me too, but
It's
not really.
Yeah, not the same way.
You don't know.
So that's
No.
interesting.
This is flooded, Mom. This is all flooded. Riley, did yours?
It's actually broken.
Oh, that's beautiful. Chloe and Adeline and Piper.
attracted more water.
No, because this is.
I have a question.
Okay, I see two people who have
Question.
one person who has a question who's unmuted. Do you want to ask yours first? And then
Mine is completely clear.
completely clear. It didn't pull the color at all?
And
So what kind of marker did you use?
I
for
had
that?
color.
It had color, but then it got pulled right out of it?
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Maybe it got sucked out onto the tray. So look at your tray.
My
and see
brothers.
if there's any color there.
There's all the color.
Did the color get sucked out onto the tray you're working on?
Yeah.
Did not. Interesting. That's what happens to mine sometimes. Like a lot got sucked out of this, and I have a big puddle. Maybe you can see a puddle. Oh, I just poured it on the table. I had a puddle of liquid in there.
There's only my black Sharpie marker that I put on. Mine is totally clear.
How did the black Sharpie marker turn out? Did that spread?
No, not at all.
No, mine didn't either. I tried one with a Sharpie marker and it didn't spread at all. Here's one I did earlier. And see, this dark mark is the Sharpie. It didn't spread. This one was a dry erase one, and it also didn't spread. But this one was a Crayola one, and it did.
A little.
You want to get Crayola, okay.
So it's snowing now.
Oh, look at that. I love it.
I have a picture, Mom. Once we were. He's growing hair.
Oh, I love what everyone is showing me. Does anybody else have another question?
Attention to question. They're not, Mom.
Oh, amazing, Joe.
Emily had a great suggestion in the chat, which is that afterward, once your coffee filter or paper towel dries, try making a beautiful piece of art with your coffee filters. So what do you think you could do with them?
Raise your hand if you have an idea. They'll call on you.
Ilana? Eliana? Can you unmute yourself? Oh, there you go.
What could you do with it, Gav? Why don't you raise your hand and participate?
I think that we like could cut our thing out.
Can you hear me?
I think we could cut it out then and like it make a flower out of it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And also I think we should pour water on the paper towel first, then color, then put a little more water on it.
Oh, you should try that.
I need to get.
Who else has an idea of something you could make out of it? Simon? You have a question? Sure.
Well, I noticed that depending on what the design you made, the water reacted differently to it.
Ah, interesting. Like, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Like, I noticed if I made a square, it didn't really spread that much. But if I made more of a circle shape, then it like spread a lot more.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I love those observations. I'm not sure why that happened.
Maybe that's because when it's round, it usually like it might like so it's all in different directions, so it might like spread all over.
Ooh, I love that theory, Arlo. Thank you. And I see someone else with their hand up, and it just says iPhone on your name to me.
Oh, right. Is that you, I wonder?
You've got dinosaurs on your shirt. You have a question?
Só a gente está vendo eles não estão vendo a gente.
Go ahead and tell her.
Yours is so pink and red. Look at that. I didn't hear your question though.
Tell her I use scented markers and they smell really good when they're wet.
I use the markers that are really good.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
And they're so pretty. Show her this one.
Scented markers. Who knew? Yeah, I imagine they would smell really good.
Ooh,
wow, that's so beautiful. Good job, everyone.
Mommy, when I didn't squeeze it.
Ariel thought she could make a sun catcher out of her coffee filter.
Oh, what a great idea. Yeah, you could even cut up different ones that are different colors and tape them together to make a fun sun catcher, or just use one. I love that. You know, I would love to see pictures of the things that you guys make out of these, or just what they look like dried. If you felt like sharing pictures of them on our Facebook page after we post our video later this afternoon, I would really love to see what everybody has done today. Oh, I see one more question. It looks like, Sarah, you have another question?
You could try doing different, if you like actually like rip them apart, you could try different shapes of the outside and it might turn out different.
Oh, that's a cool idea. I'd love to see that too.
Squirrel.
All right. Oh, I see some more really cool ones. Emma and Saya. Oh, and Joe. See there. Awesome, everybody. Well, if we don't have any more questions or ideas of way that we can turn them into art, oh, I love that rainbow one. I think I'll say goodbye, and hopefully people can share what you've made on our Facebook page. All right. Can we say goodbye, science friends?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.